Maria, 67 years old, sat at a small wooden table by the window. Her bank book lay open in front of her. The numbers were modest, and they would never grow again. Her pension was the only thing carrying her through each month, from the years she raised her child alone to the quiet days after her child had grown and gone on to a life of their own. Maria wasn't wasteful. She knew every dollar mattered. One meal, one box of medicine, the electric bill that crept higher each season. She wasn't afraid of being poor. She was afraid of the day when it wouldn't be enough and there would be no one left to lean on. That morning, Maria slipped on her old coat and walked to the corner pharmacy. The air was cold. The street was quiet. It felt like any other ordinary day. She held her prescription list in her hand, doing the math silently, what she could afford, what she might have to leave behind. And then she heard a soft sound of crying. A young girl sat near the entrance, eyes red, clutching a crumpled receipt. Maria hadn't planned to interfere. She simply stood nearby. But the sound of that crying pulled her attention away from herself. The girl looked up and said through tears,
"I don't have enough. My mom's medicine costs too much."
The words struck a place Maria had avoided for a long time, because she had been there before. Maria stood still. There was no music, no miracle, just one question in her mind. If I give, how will I manage this month? She knew that money in her purse was already carefully counted, just enough to live modestly, with no cushion, no comfort. Her hand trembled slightly, not because she doubted kindness, but because she understood the cost of it. Maria took the money out and placed it gently on the girl's receipt. No long speech, no lesson. She only said softly, "Take it, dear. Your mother needs it." The girl looked at her, trying to speak, but no words came. Maria turned away and walked out of the store before anyone's tears could soften her resolve any further. Back home, Maria set down her medicine and sat in the same old chair. The house felt quieter than usual. No television, no voice asking, "How was your day?" She sat there for a long time, thinking of the bills ahead, of meals that might be smaller, of being even more careful than before. But she didn't feel regret, and she didn't feel pride either. Only one clear thought remained. I am still myself. Maria spoke softly to her own heart, as she had done many times before. I may not have much, but I don't want to be someone who turns away from another's pain. She knew the world doesn't always reward kindness, and giving doesn't promise an easier life, but she had made her choice. She would not let fear decide who she was. The next morning came. Maria brewed the same coffee, ate the same slice of bread. Life hadn't changed. The problems were still there. Money was still tight. Yet something inside her felt steadier, more grounded. She didn't know what became of the little girl. She didn't know if the mother recovered, and she didn't need to know. The next morning, Maria went back to the pharmacy, this time not to buy medicine, but to ask about the prescription she would need in the coming month. She stood quietly outside the store, just as she always did. Then a familiar voice spoke behind her. "Ma'am?" Maria turned around and saw the little girl again, standing beside her mother. They looked tired, but there was a new light in their eyes. The mother stepped forward, bowed her head slightly, and said in a trembling voice, "Thank you so much. If it hadn't been for you that day, I truly don't know what we would have done." The little girl held out a small cloth bag. Inside were a few homemade treats, carefully wrapped, not fancy, but made with everything they had. "This is all we can give," the mother said softly. Maria took the bag in her hands. They trembled, not because of what it held, but because of what it meant. Maria didn't speak for a long moment. She simply smiled, a smile wider than she had worn in a very long time. In that instant, she understood. What she had given the day before had never been lost. It had found its way back to her, not as money, but as hope reflected in someone's eyes, and as a heart that no longer felt alone. When Maria returned home, she placed the small bag on the table and sat down quietly. Her heart felt full, warm and gently alive with a new kind of strength. She was not richer, life would still require care and restraint, but she felt abundant in a way money could never provide. Maria closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "This kind of happiness comes when we open our hearts to help one another." And in that moment, she understood something deeply true. Giving has never made anyone poorer. True happiness does not come from what we hold on to, but from what we are willing to share, even when we do not have much.